beyond the headlines. Tonight on the program, consumers brace for another round of fuel price hikes, while a number of areas in Metro Manila will go waterless next week. Continuing gains and some challenges in the COVID-19 fight, cases in Metro Manila are on the decline, but experts report surges in some areas outside the national capital region. And get to know one of the senatorial aspirants in the 2022 elections. We'll have an up-close conversation with human rights lawyer Neri Colmenares. We begin with stories that will hit millions of Filipinos hard. Oil companies are carrying out fuel price hikes for the 8th straight week. Effective tomorrow at 6 in the morning, Clean Fuel, Flying V, Petrogas, Phoenix Petroleum, PTT Philippines, Sea Oil, Total, Unioil, and Petron will hike gasoline prices by 1 peso and 80 centavos per liter. Diesel prices from the same companies will be up by 1 peso and 50 centavos a liter, while Flying V, Sea Oil, and Petron will impose a 1 peso and 30 centavo increase for every liter of kerosene. Other oil companies are expected to follow suit. The Energy Department earlier warned that these series of price hikes may persist until next year. Fuel prices have been rising globally because of increasing demand. The Transportation Department says it is looking for ways to help drivers and operators in the wake of rising fuel prices. The DOTR says it is working on a proposed subsidy. The agency is coordinating with the Energy Department on a uniform discount in gas stations for public utility vehicles, especially jeepneys. We've yet to receive a statement from the trade industry on how the recent hikes are affecting prices of basic goods. Well, western portions of Metro Manila will go waterless for almost 4 days next week because of flood control projects. On your screens are the affected areas, including parts of Las Piñas, Makati, Manila, Parañaque, Pasay, Bacoor, Cavite City, Imus, as well as some towns in Cavite Province. Or some other towns in Cavite Province. Water concessionaire Maynilad says this is in line with the pipe realignment initiative of the Public Works Department. Maynilad adds it will install 14 stationary water tanks and deploy 60 more mobile water tanks to serve areas that will have no water for 3 straight days. Maynilad urges customers to store enough water for the period. For the complete list of affected barangays, visit our website at cnnphilippines.com. A United Nations report says global hunger is on the rise as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and over half of those suffering are in Asia. Hunger is also among the top personal concerns for Filipinos based on the Pulse Asia survey. Tristan Nodalo tells us more.
From the kitchen to the streets, Edna Rabina, a mother of 5, now works as a pedicab driver since the start of COVID-19 pandemic last year. The 48-year-old mom used to work in a canteen. Her husband was also rendered jobless, so she needs to make ends meet.
Kahit pa paano, kaya ko naman iraos ang pamilya ko. Tsaka ang hirap ng buhay ngayon, sir, ang hirap ng walang pasahero. Inaabot kami ng gabi dito para lang makabili ng pagkain eh. Makabili ng itlog at saka tuyo, okay na po eh. Hindi kami makabiling baboy, hindi kami makabili. Yun lang pong kaya namin bilhin eh.
Few streets away from Edna, Rowena Kaabay shares the hardship of putting food on the table since the pandemic started. Most of the time, her family resorts to borrowing money to sustain their daily needs.
Minsan, nakakapangutang na rin po sa pang-araw-araw kasi yun talagang pagkain, hindi mo pwedeng iliban yun. Yun ang pinakaano ng sa pagkain. Yung bahay minsan, syempre, nadidelay yung bayad.
Like Edna and Rowena, most Filipinos believe that having enough food every day is among the top personal concerns in a recent Pulse Asia survey. It ranked 3rd after staying healthy and having job security. The State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2020 report of the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization also showed that more than 700 million people globally experience hunger and can be considered undernourished due to the pandemic. Half of these numbers came from Asia. Majority of people undernourished in 2020 came from South Asia, Southeast Asia, Central, and Western Asia. In June 2021, the Social Weather Stations or SWS reported that 3.4 million Filipino families experienced hunger. The Social Welfare Development signed a memorandum of agreement in September with various government agencies and groups to end hunger and poverty in the country. The Duterte administration also formed a Task Force Zero Hunger last year to focus on eradicating hunger in the country by ensuring stable food supply and partnerships with the private sector. But for ordinary Filipinos like Edna and Rowena, these initiatives have yet to make an impact on their daily lives made more difficult by the existing and exhausting health crisis. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines.
Independent researchers flagged the surge in COVID-19 cases in Zamboanga City. The Okta Research Group placed the city under critical risk after it recorded 221 infections from October 10 to the 16th. Healthcare utilization there is also critical at 87% and 73% for intensive care unit occupancy. The group also raised concerns about the significant spike in Naga City, Bicol, which logged 61 cases over the past week. Okta says while the hospitalization rate there is not yet critical, the positivity and daily attack rates are very high. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 situation continues to improve here in Metro Manila. The virus reproduction rate dropped to 0.58, meaning transmission is slowing down. Okta adds the average daily attack rate may decline to moderate from high risk by next week. The country logged over 6,900 cases today, the second straight day that infections fell below 7,000 since the first week of August. Active cases are now over 68,000, which is 2.5% of the total case count. Okta says vaccination is a key factor in the decline, but reminds everyone not to let their guards down.
Expect this kind of crowding in areas. Definitely we need to maintain minimum public health standards because even though the trend is downward, cases are going down. We're averaging about 1,400 cases now per day in Metro Manila, which is far less than almost 6,000 average during the peak of the surge. But still, we should not be complacent.
A quick look now at the country's COVID-19 vaccination numbers since the immunization drive began in March. Government data shows that over 51,400,000 vaccines have been administered as of October 15th. Now, of that number, more than 27,500,000 are the first dose, while nearly 24 million people are fully inoculated. Over 19 million vaccines have so far arrived in the country. Now, vaccine manufacturers need to apply to amend their emergency use authorization to include a third COVID-19 dose. The country will follow a World Health Organization recommendation to give a third shot to senior citizens and immunocompromised people who received Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccines. But the Health Department says this cannot be done without amendments to the current EUA.
Sinasabi ng ebidensya at mga eksperto, ang mga immunocompromised individuals, for example, cannot mount that appropriate immune response to just these 2 doses. Kaya kailangan pa ng isang dose para makumpleto at mas maproteksyonan sila at maboost ang kanilang immune system.
The DOH adds the third dose is not considered a booster shot and will be treated as part of the primary care series. Coming up, with many Filipinos abroad not yet registered to vote, will COMELEC calls to extend the registration period, and a former party list lawmaker and human rights lawyer is gunning for a Senate seat, his third try. We get up close with Nery Colmenares later on in the program. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Oh, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Bawat patak, may sarap, may lakas, sulit. Red Horse Beer.
Using Doña Elena olive oil helps elevate the spices and flavors of my dishes, making their aroma and taste more delicious.
I use Doña Elena not just for the restaurant, but also for cooking at home. For good quality oil, use it more at home because you are serving your family.
Because you and your family deserve only the best.
Make it olive oil, make it Doña
Flyers.
Kabilang ba kayo sa mga Pilipino na nahihirapan sa mga transaksyon dahil wala o kulang ang mga valid IDs?
Huwag nang mag-alala dahil narito na po ang PhilSys, ang identification system ng bawat Pilipino.
Meron lamang pong 3 steps para makapagrehistro at makakuha ng PhilID. Para sa Step 1 registration, pumunta lang sa register.philsys.gov.ph para makapag-register sa PhilSys online.
Sa pamamagitan ng ID natin, ang bawat Pilipino ay meron ng valid proof of identity.
At mas mapapadali na ang ating mga public and private transactions. Kaya ano pang hinihintay nyo?
Ayain na sina nanay, tatay at ang buong pamilya. At mag-register na.
Ito ang PhilSys, ID natin to.
Discovery Plus has arrived in the Philippines. Your new home of larger-than-life entertainment and unforgettable characters is here. Subscribe now at 129 pesos for the first year. Don't miss out.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. One lawmaker pleading with the Commission on Elections over demands to reopen voter registration for Filipinos abroad. The poll body gave a 2-week extension for overseas voters to register before Philippine embassies and consular offices, which lapsed on October 14th. In Dubai, at least one voter had to wait 9 hours to complete the process. Senator Amy Marcos says extension may be offered in countries with a high number of Filipino residents. In response, COMELEC says it will discuss the proposal on Wednesday.
Kung kaya pa namin i-stretch yung sa OFO. Eh, stretch na po siya, pero i-try pa din namin. Magandang idea yun, Honors, na we will cater doon lang sa parang NCR nila, yung pinakamaraming hindi pa nakapag-register.
Here at home, we're flashing on your screens the list of select areas where voter registration is ongoing until October 30th. The schedule, which is open even on Saturdays, include Metro Manila, Quezon Province, Ilocos Sur, and 3 independent cities in Cebu, namely Cebu City, Mandaue City, and Lapu-Lapu City. Former Solicitor General Florin Hilbay has resigned from Acción Democrático, the political party that supported his senatorial bid in 2019. Hilbay thanks the party for all the support given him in the last election and assures them of his respect for choosing to endorse Isko Moreno, the mayor of Manila. Hilbay explains he left because he is supporting Vice President Leni Robredo's presidential bid. Hilbay believes Robredo understands the threat posed by the Marcoses. She will hold President Duterte and cronies accountable for their alleged crimes, and he says she will stand up to China on the West Philippine Sea dispute. Meantime, Acción Democrática admits that while they lost a good number, or it lost a good member in Hilbay, they gained thousands more members to contest in the 2022 elections. Bayan Muna Party List Representative Carlos Zarate says the Makabayan bloc is still waiting for talks with Vice President Leni Robredo, as the group has yet to throw its support to a particular presidential aspirant. Zarate says the Makabayan bloc's processes should be respected, as he denied former Senator Antonio Trillanes' claim that the group does not support Robredo's bid. He says all groups under the Makabayan coalition should be consulted before it decides on who to support in the upcoming polls. Zarate adds the coalition is also in talks with Senator Manny Pacquiao and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, who are also both running for president. Makabayan Bloc senatorial bet Nery Colmenares trended on social media recently as netizens call for his inclusion in Robredo's senatorial slate. Joining us now is the former Makabayan Party List Representative Nery Colmenares. Attorney Nery, magandang gabi po sa inyo. So parang there are two issues here, yung ang inclusion or non-inclusion po ninyo so far sa slate ni Vice President Leni Robredo at ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan, senatorial slate by the way, and the non-declaration or ang Makabayan hindi pa rin pumipili na kung sino ang kanilang or inyong presidential bet. But let's first begin with this, sir, yung unang issue doon. For some reason, kumbaga para bang people don't want the left to forget its past, no? So we've seen several of Leni Robredo's supporters point out on social media that in 1986, for example, nag-boycott pa kayo ng eleksyon. Hindi po kayo sumama doon sa opposition that had the unified slate of Cory Aquino and Doy Laurel as president and VP. And then in 2016, nakipag-alyansa daw po kayo with President Duterte, with several joining his cabinet. Tapos ngayon, para bang out in the cold na naman kayo daw, no? What's going on, no? Bakit parang inuungkat po ito? Bakit nilalabas na naman ito? What's going on in the forces that are supposed to be arrayed against the Duterte and Marcos, the possible Duterte and Marcos team up?
Yes, well, actually, yung 2016, it's been dredged up again. But I would like to express assured yan talaga. We supported Grace Poe until the very end. So, klaro yan sa amin. No? So, sa akin, hindi dapat iungkatin yan. Pero sige, kung ungkatin man yan, ito ang issue ngayon. We are going to unite sana to oppose the return of the Marcoses and of course President Duterte in Malacanang. It is clear naman, Tia, that we are part of the opposition eh. So I hope na makilala naman ng lahat yan. Marami kaming mga activists and human rights defenders na namatay under President Duterte precisely because he considers us as an opposition, a part of the opposition, at very scathing talaga yung attacks namin sa kanya, and is intolerant of dissent. We know that. So I'm not saying that the other political parties did not suffer death or may mga arrested din sila o posible may mga patay na rin sila. But I'm saying na we are genuinely opposing President Duterte. We did not support President Duterte in 2016. In fact, that is already clear para sa amin. No? If you look at the meeting, the Avance of Makabayan in 2016, we said there, right there sa last speech of the election, ano ang gusto nyo? Kamay na bakal or presidenting may puso? Klaro talaga yung aming decision doon. Now, the fact that some members of Makabayan campaigned for President Duterte should not sana parang render the entire Makabayan process as parang nag-Duterte na kami. The fact that certain liberal parties, for example, supported Duterte, I wouldn't go to the lengths of saying that Liberal Party went for President Duterte. So sa akin, ganun yung context namin dyan na titingnan ng lahat.
Yeah.
But in any case, nandito na tayo sa 2022
right now,
and I hope opposition yung mag-unite ang opposition against him.
Oo nga eh. Kasi from the outside, para bang what it looks like, Attorney Nery, is para bang lahat nagtuturuan ba? Kasi ikaw, parang ganun na nangyayari, no?
Yes,
so,
yes.
You know, I wanted to ask you, in your estimation, no, what do you think really is getting in the way of uniting or unifying the opposition against a possible Duterte Marcos? Kasi yun ang, para bang yun ang common, ano? Yun ang sinasabi ng apat na grupo eh. So, if you were to say it in one word, Attorney Nery, ano po ba? What is getting in the way of unity?
Mahirap sa one word, Pia, di ba? Kasi there are various reasons there, I guess. Hindi mo pwedeng sum up.
Yeah.
Pero is it uphill? For a long period of time, Duterte was so very effective in intimidating everybody. Kaya hindi talaga nakabangon ng opposition for a long time eh. Controlled niya mga LGUs, intimidated yung mga checks and balance institutions. nanghuhuli, may patayan, ganon. Now, the good thing there is there are efforts to unify the opposition. And the other good thing is nagdi-disintegrate the Duterte Alliance. May giyera ang Hugpong, may giyera with PDP Laban, may giyera within PDP Laban. Ang pro-US at pro-China naglalaban within the Duterte camp. Many of their subalterns are now transferring to other candidates. I guess that's the positive side there also, other than the fact that we're still trying to unify the opposition after all these months.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're pointing to two, well, in a way, sir, external factors, because the disintegration, like you said, of the Duterte alliances with so many groups, and then yung the Duterte administration going after going after all these critics of his, no? But what is it within? Kasi syempre may external at may internal din
Yes.
Ano po ba yung problema? May internal There is something within itong apat na grupo, pati yung sa inyo, that is preventing this. What is it?
Well, President Leni Robredo tried to talk to the other opposition candidates at siguro na nalaman niya kung ano ang dahilan dito. Para sa akin talaga yung merong sigurong dahil walang history ng cooperation, yung all the opposition, all those candidates running against the Duterte candidate, syempre there is the need to magpakilanlanan sila, and I hope magkakaroon ng trust basis din among themselves. Now, mga supporters, I mean, you cannot control your supporters, but ang palagi kong sinasabi, ang mga candidates themselves, they should not be swayed by the voices sa social media. If they want to unite, they should do that. Is that possible still? Well, it's more difficult now. Nagsasagutan na yung mga presidential candidates. But I would like to think na sana somewhere along the way, they will realize that only one of them can win. And only one of them can, if therefore, they should support the other who can win. Duterte will be very vindictive if he wins. He will go after all opposition candidates na lumaban sa kanya if he returns to Malacanang.
Yeah, well, I like how you're so positive about this, parang sinasabi po ninyo, somewhere down the road you will unify.
Yeah.
Sandali lang po, Attorney Neri, kanina sabi po ninyo, President Leni Robredo, or did you say Vice before you said President? Nag-slip of the tongue po ba kayo? Or did I hear you right?
No. Huh? I meant Vice President Robredo.
You meant Vice President, but you said President.
I meant Vice President. Sorry about that.
Okay, pero what are you saying? Siya na po ba yung pinili ninyo ng makabayan? Or siya na ba yung napupusuan ninyo? Kasi may ganyan sir. Yun na yan, slip of the tongue, ganon?
No. Yeah, slip of the tongue yun. Kasi Vice President, ano lang yun, slip of the tongue. Klaro ang aming pronouncement yan. Wala pa kaming pinipili na kandidato sa ngayon. In fact, si Vice President Leni, we've been wanting to talk to her for some time to discuss issues and platforms. Unfortunately, it failed for some reasons. But we're still hopeful. At sinabi niya that 12 slot is still open at yung issue ng platform very important.
Okay.
Pia, I'd like to stress lang, the issue of platform is very important for us because we have constituencies. Now, inclusion in the slate is part lang yan, 50% lang yan. But it's not merely what is in it for me. It is also what is in it for the people. So we need to go to our members and say, well, this candidate believes in land reform or believes against contractualization or whatever. And it's very important, crucial sa aming ng discussion. And because we have not talked with the Vice President, hindi kami makadecide sa ngayon.
Okay. So inclusion in the slate, let's leave it for a little later in the show, no? But I wanted to ask about itong yung sinasabi po yun, you have to go back to your people and explain kung ano ba yung platform nito, ganito ganyan, no? So ang isang issue dito is yung mga makakasama mo sa slate. Meron po ba kayong ayaw makasama sa slate na para bang as far as you're concerned, non-negotiable? I'm not gonna take it kung kasama ito si so or so and so sa slate. Pero po ba kayong ganon, or you're not going to be choosy?
In the first place, when Vice President Robredo excluded me from her announced slate, my position and our position has been, it's her prerogative. It's the prerogative of the presidential candidate to choose their senator. I don't think it's in my place to tell her what to do, di ba? So maybe I could agree or disagree with some of the slate, but in the end, it's her choice. So I don't think I will intervene doon sa kanyang slate and tell her. Now, supporters and other allies and so on of President Leni Robredo, of course, they have all the right to speak. But me, I would be presumptuous probably to say na, oy, pag mapili ako dyan, ayaw ko ng ganyan, ayaw ko ng ganyan. Secondly, and more importantly, dapat ang stress na natin dito, unification of the opposition. Hindi pwedeng magtirahan na, ayaw ko niyan. It will create more dissension. Katawanan tayo ni Duterte at ni Marcos dito eh. So para sa akin, mas yun ang focus siguro. And let the president or the presidential candidate, whoever, I mean, Isko and Senator Manny and Leni, to decide kung sinong senatorial candidates nila. Prerogative nila yan. And I don't think I will say that to Leni Robredo about her slate.
Okay, marami pa po tayong tanong para sa inyo, Attorney Nery Colmenares, senatorial aspirant. We're going to get to that in just a bit so that we can find out more about your views and plans should you win a seat. And also, later on in the show, in music, Tony Bennett's new album, making for another achievement for this 95-year-old jazz icon. Details when we come back.
Sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
At harapin ang bukas nang may maaasahan. Simulan mo na ang forever mo ngayon. Fund your forever with Pag-ibig Fund.
Register today!
Love is all about time. Di minamadali ang pagpapasarap. Like the love in every Pure Foods ready to eat. Slow cooked and ready in 8 minutes. Para may time ka sa mga mahal mo. Because love takes time.
San Miguel Flavor Beer! Game! Ang magmahal sa kaaway, mas matamis ang buhay. Make life sweet with San Miguel Flavored Beer with the deliciously refreshing flavors of apple, lychee, and lemon with just the right beer buzz. Bili na sa suking tindahan.
For my babies, only vet-approved Nutri-Chunks puppies. The only one with active boost and prebiotics na Pampalisto. Made with real meat with essential nutrients to help them grow strong and healthy. Happiness! Listo ganado sa Nutri-Chunks puppies.
Manong Joe po.
At Ate Maita,
Ngayong October, bahagyang tumaas ang overall electricity rates ng 3 centavos per kilowatt hour. Bunga ito ng pagtaas ng transmission charge.
Pag tag-ulan, mahirap maglaba at magpatuyo. Kaya ang latest online shopping budol, portable washing machine at dryer. Easy to use daw at space saving. Bright idea nga ba ito, Engineer Alfred?
Ayon sa Meralco Power Lab test, sa portable washing machine, 27 centavos ang konsumo kada gamit. Sa portable dryer naman, less than 2 pesos per use.
Apat na shirts, laba at tuyo, higit 2 pesos lang? Carry ang konsumo. Perfect pang mabilis ang laban ng uniforms.
At para mas mapadali ang pag-manage nyo ng konsumo, abangan this October ang bago at mas maliwanag na Meralco bill na magbibigay ng
More power to you!
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Still with us is Makabayan senatorial aspirant Nery Colmenares. Attorney Nery, there are a few candidates on the slate of VP Leni Robredo who have to say it very mildly, have reservations about you. What do you think of that? For example, Sani Trillanes.
Well, when we were informed by the camp of Vice President Leni Robredo about more than 2 weeks ago that there were objections, and we were informed it was Senator Trillanes. I didn't raise it. We didn't raise it anytime. Even after her exclusion of me in her announcement 2-3 days ago, when I said, it's her prerogative, I didn't mention about the objections because I have no intention, really, Pia, of diverting the issue towards that. Or anybody in the senatorial slate probably would have all the right to say no or yes to that one, and it's up for the Vice President to decide. Now, so sa akin, ang unity ng opposition is more important now, and that is the prerogative of the Vice President again, if she listens to the part of her senatorial slate or not. If she listens, then again, wala naman ako magawa doon, di ba? But if she believes in that the kabayan can help, our national machinery can help, our 3.5 million voter base can help, our poll watchers can help, our social media warriors can help, then so be it. Then we will be very happy. What is clear, we want to defeat Duterte and Marcos here. So whether we're part of any slate or not, we will pursue this endeavor to make sure that they are not in Malacanang in 2022.
So you're willing to set aside all these differences. I mean, I can't help but say, it sounds so refreshing. It sounds so strange to hear you talk this way. Although you've always had this very malumanay tone of voice. Oh.
Yeah, I'd like to add there, Pia, this election is really very different from the other elections. This is ako survival na ito nating lahat ang naka-at-stake dito. We cannot have another 6 years of this kind of COVID response. We cannot have another 6 years of pinamimigay ang ating mga yamang dagat sa China. We cannot have that. So this is the survival at stake. So iba ang requirements sa lahat na yon. At sinasabi ko sa mga kasama namin na kahit we can demand from the candidates to unite, but we must also show among ourselves that we unite. How can we unite the candidates if we show among ourselves that we don't unite, diba? So we don't have the moral authority to impose on them the unities if we ourselves cannot have unity. So I'd like to focus on that because Duterte will probably win if we continue bickering at each other. So I'm not, call me eternal optimist, but I think there will still be the chance that people will realize that this is survival of the Filipino people is at stake, and we will unite no matter what because we want to defeat Duterte and Marcos in 2022.
Yes. Okay, well, Attorney Neri, you mentioned the pandemic and China, for example. I have a question about this health crisis. No, if you were to have a say, let's say there is the president who is elected is on your side and you get elected to the Senate, how would you want to have the health crisis managed differently? I know you are a lawyer and you can out-talk anyone, but there, baka you can summarize that.
Free healthcare, very important. Kaya ng gobyerno ba tustusan ang libreng gamot at libreng paggamot? I believe so. Kung kaya natin mangako ng free tuition, we can do free healthcare sa lahat without any qualms. Pag pumunta ka sa ospital, libre hospitalisasyon, libre konsultasyon, libre operasyon. And we can do that. Secondly, ang COVID response natin must not only be vaccine-centered. It must also focus on contact tracing. It must also focus on mass testing. Because unless we do these things, hindi paulit-ulit lang yung COVID, di ba? So, bakuna is very important, very good, but we also need these other aspects ng COVID response, which Duterte is not doing. And I don't believe in the loan-generated kind of COVID response na utang ng utang na hindi naman ang mamamayang Pilipino magbabayad dyan. He's borrowed 2.6 trillion last year, is going to borrow 3 trillion last year. Saan napunta yung perang yun? Maraming hindi nakatanggap ng ayuda. So, yung ayuda would be very important din, Pinky. Sorry, lawyer of me to talk longer than I should.
Yes. I know. Attorney Neri, yes or no questions na lang po, no explanation, yes or no. First, do you favor easier public access to the SALN of the President, Vice President, members of Congress, Senators, Congressmen? Yes or no?
Yes, access dapat sa public. Makabayan as
Do you-
always issued our SALENs publicly.
Okay. Okay, sir, wala na pong explanation do you support lifting foreign ownership limits in the Constitution? Yes or no? I think I know
No.
what you're gonna say. Do you favor the reimposition of the death penalty for drug-related crimes? Yes or no?
No. The
Should the sitting
reimposition of
president
the
be
death
allowed to run for
penalty.
VP in the next? Should the sitting
No.
president be allowed to run for VP in the next election, although President Duterte hasn't filed the COC? Okay, no. Do you favor resuming peace talks with communist rebels? Yes or no?
Yeah.
It's a yes.
Yes. Peace is
And
important.
lastly,
yes.
should the country be more aggressive in protecting its maritime interests in the West Philippine Sea? Yes or no, sir?
Yes, very much. We should be more aggressive than now.
Attorney Nery
We need to
Colmenares, thank you,
protect-
sir, very much for joining us tonight here on Newsnight on Up Close. Salamat po, sir.
Maraming salamat din po.
When we
Kuya.
return,
Good
netizens are getting excited to hear a K-pop track in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and more music news with Tony Bennett making another career milestone at 95 years old. Details after a quick break.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
You're watching Newsnight. I'm Pia Ontiveros. A diversified conglomerate is keeping its promise to help uplift communities by providing livelihood. A new market and free fishing boats are just some projects that San Miguel Corporation conducted or brought to a community in Sariaya, Quezon. Here's Paige Javier.
Getting a good catch also meant breaking the bank for some fishermen living at the San Miguel Christian Gayeta homes in Sariaya, Quezon. That's because they do not have their own boats, leaving them no choice but to either borrow boats or join other trips. This will now be a thing of the past for these fishermen, following the donation of 18 boats by the San Miguel Corporation.
Yung first batch po ay 36 na bangka na i-donate natin sa 69 na mangingisda dito sa Sariaya. Ngayon po ay iba naman ang ating i-donatan, yung isang korporasyon na mag-manage po ng ating San Miguel Market para maisigurado po yung tuloy-tuloy na supply ng isda doon sa ating San Miguel Market.
One beneficiary says the new boats will help them cut costs and ensure exclusivity of their catch.
Napakalaki po, ma'am, na tulong sa amin yan dahil unang-una hindi na namin bibilihin yan. Binigay na sa amin ng libre yan, kaya napakalaking pasasalamat po namin dahil yung pamumuhay po ng bawat isa na mamibigyan yan, napakalaking tulong.
Aside from the donation, SMC continues to equip its beneficiaries with TESDA-accredited skills training. More residents are taking part in the free courses available like hog racing, organic farming, and welding. In the meantime, SMC formally opened its market run by its Sariaya beneficiaries. It's a one-stop shop where one can buy various products like fish, meat, fruit, vegetables, and even medicine. Residents believe the market will be a big help for those nearby.
Lahat tayong may nabibili dito, abot kaya, yung ganyan. At kinakaya naman ng iba.
Napakalaking tulong sa amin itong San Miguel Market kasi dito nagkaroon kami ng pag-asa na makaahon sa hirap.
Ayos naman maganda naman para sa taga rito. Hindi na kami lalayo.
Okay, marami kang mabibiling mura. Pag sa bayan ka pumunta, mamamasahe ka ng malaki. Dito, wala ka ng pamasahe.
San Miguel hopes to expand its integrated food hub to reach more residents in the Quezon province.
Papalakihin po natin yung ating San Miguel Market. Nakaplano na po na yan po ay i-expand natin. Yan po ang vision ng ating Pangulo ng San Miguel Corporation na si Ginoong Ramon Ang. At maging distribution center po yan ng mga San Miguel food products dito sa Quezon hanggang sa Camarines Sur and Sorsogon.
The corporation aims to continue delivering its promise to improve lives and to leave no one behind. Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
In sports, the Hanoi 31st Southeast Asian Games are finally pushing through mid-May next year. The Philippines is set to compete in 39 sports, with the country's Olympic Committee submitting a roster of 626 athletes for the event. The Games were supposed to be held from November 21 to December 2 this year, but were postponed because of the pandemic. POC President Abraham Tolentino said specific dates will be announced by organizers soon. And making the rounds on social media, the next Marvel motion picture may feature a track from K-pop sensation BTS. Online articles said the Eternals official soundtrack will include Friends from the group's previous album. Marvel trended on Twitter after the news dropped, along with congratulations for BTS member Jimin, who produced the song. Fans can see the action-packed film starring Angelina Jolie while waiting for the BTS tune starting November 5th. And still in music, Tony Bennett keeps churning out hit after hit and breaking even more records at 95 years old. The Grammy Award winner set the Guinness World Record for being the oldest person to release an album of new material. This was after dropping Love for Sale with Lady Gaga just last month. The collaborative album earned Bennett his 5th world record after 70. That's 70 years in the music industry. Have a listen to the duet.
If you want the thrill of love, she's been through the mill of love. Oh no! New love, every love but true love for sale.
Bennett is famous for singing tracks like I Left My Heart in San Francisco and Fly Me to the Moon, turning him into a music icon in the 50s until today. We have 68 days before Christmas, and that is it for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
RPN Radio Philippines Network, Radyo Ronda, DXKT Davao, member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
We often hear teenagers say, nobody understands us. Truth is, there's so much going on in a teenager's mind, body, and heart. It's going to be very difficult to keep up. One moment they're happy and respectful, then in a blink of an eye, even the simplest conversations turn into arguments, which leaves you wondering whatever happened to your easygoing, cheerful child. Don't despair though, it's a phase, and like most phases, it may pass. Oftentimes, the transition is anything but smooth, but parents can make these years a little easier on themselves as well as their teens. It all starts with accepting that this is necessary for the growth and development of their children. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching Med Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're here to build a healthier future for you. Teenage angst is part of growing up, but with the pandemic, it can only be harder on teens, their friends, and family members. To help us with today's discussion, let's welcome Dr. Margaret May Maanyo. She's an adolescent medicine specialist at the UP Philippine General Hospital and Medical Center, Manila. Also joining us is Mr. Luis Angelo Villaruel, psychologist at the University of Santo Tomas Hospital. Now, teenagers get this feeling of being overwhelmed, anxious, rejected at sometimes, or even unwanted. And this is what we refer to as teenage angst. This is part of growing up, and there are many reasons why this could be happening. I'll start the conversation first with Dr. Marga. At what age does this all start?
So this popularized term refers to a common phase throughout teenage years, particularly from 13 years old to 19 years old, characterized by your anxiety, and inner and outer conflict.
Now, almost all teens go through this, the rebellious phase, the need for independence and separate identity. And this is linked to changes in the brain that will eventually help them become analytical adults. Now, Luis, how would someone know, how would a parent know if this is what's happening to their adolescent is normal, if it's just a phase, or simply inappropriate behavior?
So this is the stage in their life where they are fighting between identity and role confusion. No? So the crisis talaga stems from the question, who am I? And what do I want to become? What do I want to be in this circle or in this society? No? So it's really them trying to find their place alongside pa with the exact timing of puberty and hormonal changes, growth, and all these things, no? What are some normal or typical behaviors ba kasi, no? Well, we can expect them to be a little more reckless or risky when it comes to making decisions, no? Not necessarily looking at the far end of consequences, but rather they use their emotions. This is a very emotional phase for them, no? And they try to find out where do they belong ba in this society.
The parents are the most important role models which these teenagers can have, but sometimes their angsty behavior, the angsty behavior of their child can be very stressful for the parent. That's why I'd like to ask first, Dr. Marga, how can parents better understand some of the changes that their teenagers are going through?
So important for a teenager is, remember, as Dr. Luis said, that they are trying to establish themselves as a separate entity beyond their parents. So allow them some liberties to experiment on your own. Be able to trust them. You can, simulate trust by giving them responsibilities at home. Simply doing something like washing the dishes, taking out the trash, taking the dog out for a bath, feeding the dog, actually bathing the dog is already a good example of your trust that you are expecting them to be part of the family and to do these things. At the same time, always still be there for them. Have time to have quality time, such as eating together. Even if they don't want to join you for family activities, invite them to watch a Netflix series, to watch a movie as a family together. Also, you can also advise them to actually, you find good things or nice things to bond with your children. So if your teenager likes to bake or likes to cook, invite them to go cooking with you. If they are fond of animals or their pets, you go with them to have an afternoon walk together. Also, be a listening ear. An ear that actually hears what the teacher is saying. Your teenager would not appreciate you solving the problem for them, but they would really appreciate you to hear them out. At the same time, you offer advice when they ask for it.
Now, aside from brain development and maybe the lack of sleep, teens also go through a lot of physical changes because adolescence is a time for growth spurts as well as puberty. And mood changes, energy level variations, these are all normal parts of this stage. Dr. Marga, how can one support a teenage boy or girl during this very tumultuous time?
Nice question. But it is true that teenagers, especially those in the early teenage years, they are really concerned about their body image. So like that. So actually a good term will be for teenagers, it's notorious to be the awkward years. Diba? So ang term na I remember from the movie Princess Diaries is when I'm waiting for normal body parts to come out. So basically that's how their teenage feels. And everything is really awkward. That's why we have to help them feel good about themselves. So simple tips would be to focus on helping your body feel good. Example, if you have a pimple, you treat the pimple. Put a cream, put a pimple patch. If you do not feel good about your hair, you can try different styles, try to gel it, try to color it, anything that will make your hair feel more acceptable for you. And if you feel that your body is not fit enough, do physical activity, some exercise, some sports. This is always a good place to start. So doing things that will make you feel better about your body, it will be good during these times. Especially when these are times when teenagers start to express themselves by doing different hairstyles, doing different hair color. Some even do ear piercing as a way of expressing themselves. So allow them these liberties to make their bodies more feel comfortable about themselves. So that boosting up their confidence in their body also boost up their self-esteem.
When we return, we'll talk about the most common behaviors of teens, why they do it, and when it should be a cause of concern. We're in connection to healthcare. You're watching Met Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Some rebellious, irritable, and anxious behavior is a normal and healthy part of being a teenager. When shifts in their personality are more extreme, they can be a sign of a more serious mental health issue. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching Met Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're together in health. More often than not, teens would test your boundaries. They'd argue, withdraw, or keep to themselves. It's an awkward phase and changes are happening. So, to the parents, try to understand them. Now, Luis, what are the more common behaviors seen in teens, or especially teens with angst?
One thing that we tell people talaga is that anyone can experience anxiety. Anyone can experience these kinds of bouts. So, this includes also teens, right? And it does not need to be a diagnosed disorder at all, no? They could just be experiencing these anxieties. So, ano ba yung ginagawa nila pag nakakaranas sila nila? As we said earlier, or what we've been discussing, is that ginagawa nila is pinaprocess nila through emotions, no? While in fact, something that we should be doing is addressing them rationally instead, no? So typically, ang one teen behavior is yung risk-taking behavior or impulsive behavior. Kasi nga, very emotional, very here and now ang dating. Not necessarily thinking about the possible long-term effects niyan.
I'd like to talk to Dr. Margaret about what Luis mentioned, and those are the risk-taking behaviors sa mga teens. Of course, the parents, this is where they are most concerned about, ano? So let's define what risk-taking behaviors are, how should they be addressed again, and what is their underlying cause kaya for them to reach that level? Dr. Margaret.
So what we often term as risk-taking behavior includes actually smoking, including vaping nowadays also. There's also alcoholic drinking. There's also early sexual initiation, sexual behavior like that. Those are examples of your common risky behaviors that we actually put, and also drugs. Those who try drugs should also be included in this list like that. So, how do we deal with common risky behaviors? Remember, during the teenage years, this is actually the time where in the experiment, they try new things. Most often than not, in order to fit into their barkada or their peer group, they actually will try those things that they are engaged in, like they have friends who smoke, they will try smoking. They have friends who drink, they actually try drinking. It is in social gatherings, they're actually introduced to these things.
Now, Dr. Margaret, a common thing that teens also do is choose their friends over family gatherings or whatnot. They'd rather spend their time with friends of theirs. Is this something that parents should look at as normal? When is this something that should be addressed?
This is part of normally growing up. Again, your teenager is trying to establish his or herself away from the family. That's why they're trying to involve themselves more with their peer groups because they're just trying to discover, sino ba ako na hindi ako hindi ako si mommy ko, hindi ako si daddy ko, sino ba ako na mag-isa, na hiwalay from that. That's why they're trying different hobbies, they're trying more engaged in friends because they're discovering a self away from the family, which is actually part of growing up. Now, parents have to learn that really at this phase, your teens are trying talaga to discover themselves away from their families. That's why they're trying to actually stop making bonding moments with you. But remember that when they grow up older, they will still be inculcated with all the values you've given to them. So don't worry. And once this phase passes, you'll still be going, Mommy, patulong naman dito. Mommy, anong gagawin ko ng ganito? You will still be like that when they pass this phase. But as of now, as they're trying to discover themselves away from the family, it will really be expected that they will be bonding more with their friends.
Okay, as a reminder, some defiance is healthy and normal, and it's common for teens to want to make their own decisions and not have to listen to parental authority. Now, the pandemic has put a pause to our social lives. This has especially been brutal for teenagers since they're predisposed to seeking independence at this age. But right now, they're, for the most part, trapped at home. Now, Luis, how does this pandemic contribute to teen angst?
They don't get to engage anymore in their normal activities that they used to be able to engage at least 2 years ago, no? So it's something that's very, very different, and it's really affecting them. No? So some studies have found that the mental health of teen girls were really being affected because of this. Yeah. And as what you and si Dr. Margo were talking about earlier, because yung friends talaga yung pinaka source na nga nila ngayon of their connection. That's where they're trying to find their place. All their lives, they've been spending it with their families. They want to try to find their own place as well as where do they fit in with their other cliques, no, or their other groups. So this pandemic has really been affecting them in terms of how do they feel, how do they connect with others, and where are they dito, no? There's a really big sense of helplessness that even us adults feel, no? Na parang we're stuck here. We can't go out. We can't do what we want. So mas lalo na yan for teens who are trying to find out who they are, no? And that creates more and more confusion, more and more panic. And that's why it is more important talaga now for us to be able to connect with one another.
Being a parent is hard. It's a balancing act, and you should give the teenagers space, but at the same time, make sure that you're paying attention to their needs. When we come back, we'll talk about how to tell the difference between teenage angst and mental illness. Your health is our mission. This is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.
Anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
A certain amount of change is normal during the teenage years, but too drastic or too long-lasting shifts in personality and behavior may signal that something is more serious. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines, where your care always comes first. It's normal for teens to be down and out of sorts for a couple of days. But if you see a significant behavioral or mood change that lasts for more than 2 weeks, it can mean that something else is going on. Now, Luis, let's identify first some of the warning signs of mental illness.
So definitely one of the things that we always look at if for signs of mental illness is what we call marked or significant impairment, no? Meron bang apektado ba yung functioning nila? So you have to look at it in different areas, no? Socially, in their occupation or their school, at home, no? In other areas of functioning, they might be going through something that they do not themselves understand.
That's why I'd like to ask Dr. Marga, how can you talk to them? How can you talk to the teens in a way that they feel safe? They don't feel judged in a way so that the conversation would be very productive.
Okay, I think it's always important to make a semblance of a safe environment. Like having meal times, wherein you regularly talk to everyone of the family, asking them how their day was, how was school, like that. This is a normal part of your daily routine, so your team will be ready and be willing to share anything that they found troublesome or something that bothered them throughout the day. So basically making this a routine even beforehand would have been made it easier for your teenager. It is a safe place to tell my parents about what's happening to me. So if you have not really established this routine of eating together, you can start now. Because nowadays, with everyone going really busy with the pandemic, still establish a time for eating together so you will have a safe place where your teen can easily converse to you. And it will signal actually to your teenager that you are ready and willing to listen to them for their problems.
Now, Dr. Margaret, a lot of these things, of course, a parent will be a parent and try to guide their child as much as possible. But when is it time for the parent to be able to understand that they need more, they need professional help? And what is recommended, what is available here, especially when the parent realizes that their teenager is going through something even more?
Nowadays, if you find anything that's difficult to talk to your teen is more moody, you're not doing really well in school, it's important to have them talk to someone. Because nowadays, again, what you said, the incidence of mental illness or mental problems is already increasing. So important is to have your teen talk to someone. If you feel that they're not talking to you and you're worried about anything that's going on with them, please have them see as mental health specialists.
And with that, we hope you found our discussion today helpful. Thank you very much, adolescent medicine specialist Dr. Margaret May Maanyo and psychologist Luis Angelo Villaruel. Even when you think they don't, your teens need your guidance. When they talk to you, don't offer advice or try to minimize their worries. Sympathize and listen. It may seem like an easy time for them, but it really isn't. Understanding their development can help you support them in becoming responsible, independent adults. The teenage years can be rewarding for both parents as well as teens, so you can either miss out on this opportunity or you can opt to go through the phase together and come out of it better together. We want to be your partner for a lifetime of good health. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this has been NetTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.